Joining me now in our visual radio studios to talk about the C.A.S.A program, Court-Appointed Special Advocate. We have three guests in our studio. Becky Adams is here, Keba Gorman, and Amy O'Neill. And thank you all for coming in. It's great to have you all in the studio with me. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us, Scott.
You bet. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And so let's start a little bit by talking about the C.A.S.A program. And Amy O'Neill, that's the question I always ask of you. So if you wouldn't mind, remind us a little bit about the Court-Appointed Special Advocate program here in San Juan County.
Yes. A C.A.S.A volunteer is a trained community volunteer who speaks up for the best interests of a child in foster care in San Juan County.
Got it. And this program's been going on for how long now? Gosh.
1996. It was started by the former Judge Ben Eastburn and our present Judge Karen Townsend when she was on the board of Child Haven. And it came under the auspices of Child Haven in 1998. And I have started working for the program since 2000.
Okay. Very good. And so how are things looking these days for C.A.S.A? I know you have a lot of cases and a lot of volunteers. Are there enough volunteers for all of the folks that need a volunteer, or is there a little gap sometimes? Becky, is that a question for you?
I can answer that.
Okay.
I believe.
All right.
Right now we have a few open cases. We were really fortunate earlier in the year to have 100% coverage, but then we got a few cases in, and a few of the volunteers went ahead and took a little bit of a leave, so we do have some open cases, and that's usually the case. We have plenty of work to go around.
Right. And so that means the timing of your appearance here is perfect because you have a training coming up in October, and so that is where you can find some new volunteers, correct, everyone? And so that's why you're here this morning, to get folks interested in maybe finding out more about becoming a C.A.S.A volunteer. And so, Keba, would that be a question for you about what it takes to become a court-appointed special advocate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it take?
So, of course, you would have to attend our pre-service training coming up, and it's going to be 5 nights, 1 full day, which is a Saturday. Training starts October 15th, and you, of course, have to be 21 years old, and you also have to pass a background check. So we do what's called an initial interview, and it's just kind of a get-to-know-you interview. So before training, we like to meet you, come to our office, ask a couple of questions, just kind of listen to what you've done in the volunteering aspect and what makes you want to be a good C.A.S.A. So
right.
we don't, there isn't a special, I should say, requirement. We do let, anybody who's willing to speak up for a child and be a leader be involved. So if they're willing to give 10 hours a month to volunteer, we would love to have them.
That's about the time commitment that it takes, right?
Yes,
that you found
monthly.
To be a C.A.S.A volunteer.
Yes.
And it seems to work out pretty good for all folks of all ages, I think, if you're retired or if you are working. I know a lot of employers tend to work with the C.A.S.A program, and if someone needs to take time off to appear in a court hearing or for an appointment, you find a lot of employers that help with that, right?
Yes, we've actually have a lot of people who've been supported by their employees as well. So it's really anybody who's willing to come. We do have a lot of people that are retired, and so but it's open to anybody. So anybody who's willing to be a volunteer.
Very good. And Becky Adams, again, this can work for all ages. You have C.A.S.A volunteers that are retired and working and what have you, correct?
Yes, just as long as they're over 21.
Right.
Meets our requirements. And the different ages, I mean, some, children kind of need a grandma figure in their life maybe, or a parental role model, things like that. So all ages are great. We do enjoy when we have trainings that men attend, because we don't have as many men involved in our program. So that is one area that we enjoy having, because it just gives some variety that we can draw from.
Sure. Well, and if the child is a little boy, to have a strong male role model, I guess, wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yes, it's very beneficial. And we enjoy all the variety of backgrounds, too, different walks of life, different employment backgrounds and such, just add to the variety that we can draw from.
And can ethnicity be a helpful thing, too? I mean, if you have a Native child with a Native volunteer, can that be helpful? or Hispanic?
Yes,
or,
especially those that are, aware of the different cultural needs that our children have, so that they can be able to help the child be in touch with their culture.
Right. Kev, I imagine that's an important thing for some of the children and some of the families that when you're trying to place a CA.S.A volunteer with a child and with a case?
Yes, so what we do also in our initial interview is also just kind of get a little bit more on their background side as well. But it also comes with whenever we assign a case, they have the opportunity to review cases as well to make sure that it is a good match. So
The volunteer does,
a
right.
volunteer, yes. So we also give that advantage to them, so make sure that the connection as well, make sure that they understand what the child's needs are and if they're going to be able to advocate for them as well. So but it's nice to hear everybody's cultural background, to see, and you learn from your volunteers too. So if I don't know something, it's great to hear the feedback as to what they know. So
Right.
it's great.
That's very true. And Amy O'Neill, I know you ask for a certain time commitment from your CA.S.A volunteers. Besides that 10 hours a month, you want them to hopefully be with this child and this child's case as it works its way through the legal system, and that can take maybe 6 months to a year or longer. But what type of time commitment do you need for your volunteers?
Yes, we do ask for a 1-year commitment from the volunteer from when the time that they start the case. And we've been lucky most people do follow through with that 1-year commitment. We are so fortunate to have many volunteers that have stayed to the very end of their case, whether it be 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And when I first started this job, we actually did not have a Native American volunteer. And we're now so happy to say that during the last year, 2018, we had 21 Native American volunteers advocating for children in foster care in San Juan County. We do have quite a few children that have a Native background. Last year, we had 70 children during the year 2018 that were under the Indian Child Welfare Act, meaning that they are an Indian child.
I see. Okay, so that's important as well.
Yes.
And so, with this being said, you have the training coming up in October, and so talk to me a little bit about that training, because I know it's when you put your CA.S.A volunteers through their paces, but give them hopefully all the tools they need to kind of feel comfortable and to get started, because these volunteers are serving as this advocate for these children as they go through the court process. And so part of their job is to interview the child and interview the families and things along that line, correct, Becky?
Yes, the training that we have draws from community experts. We have different community experts come in and speak to the class. And so it's very focused on different portions that CA.S.A will face, whether it be in going to court, the hearing timeline, interviewing a child, talking to parents, being able to relate to them, just different aspects of what that CA.S.A volunteer may face in trying to advocate for that child. It is a 30-hour training, and we do have a 5 hours worth of court observation so that they also see how the court system itself is working, how that process goes along.
Right, and you've got it kind of scheduled too. The folks are working, they should be able to attend this after work hours, right? And it's designed kind of around their work schedule.
Yes, it's 5 evenings, which start at 5:30, but we do usually service a little light meal snack to where they don't get too hungry, so if they're coming right from work, that's okay. And that goes from 5:30 till 9 on those 5 evenings, and then it is a full Saturday. And we do serve a nice lunch. During that lunchtime, the present volunteers come in and they get a chance to interact with those new trainees.
Nice. And so, again, I imagine if folks have questions, they can talk to the current volunteers and maybe ask them some questions and get some better answers, too, from people who are actually doing the work we're talking about.
Yes, and we usually give the current volunteers a chance to talk about their work and to talk about their background and what they've found out to be maybe problematic or what successes they've had.
Right. And Kevin Gorman, let me turn to you a little bit about the advocate coaches again when they're out working with these cases and going to court. I imagine it can be a little intimidating, but this training maybe helps to take the veil away of some of that if you've never really been in court before or had to
Right.
be there with a judge and all these important things being decided.
Yes. So a lot of the presenters that come to our training are actually the individuals that you will see in the courtroom. So it's not something that's going to be new. It's just being in the courtroom itself would be the new thing. But, you get that 5 hours of court observation beforehand, so you know, one, where the courtroom is. And,
Right.
and that's not going to change usually. And so that kind of helps with the introduction. Of course, each case is very different, so they will kind of hear a little bit of different outcomes and how different situations are handled. So I think that helps everybody as well, and they get to know individuals. We do have like respondent attorneys. Like sometimes people think, oh my gosh, their attorneys are a little intimidating, but we get to know them personally, and they come with good attitude when they come to our trainings as well, and that goes for everybody. We even hear from the judges, and so that too is very intimidating. So to get to know them and to see them up front and personal and just kind of get to know them, I think that really helps everybody, and they're very impressed by it too.
Right. I guess to see them as a real person, perhaps not just someone
right.
sitting behind the bench or behind the lawyer's table or what have you. Becky, does that help some of your volunteers, I guess, to see these folks in these other different capacities and that they're real people and they're approachable and they're happy to answer questions that the volunteers may have during this training?
Yes, because it's not in the court setting, so it's a little bit more relaxed, and they can approach them and talk to them, and there's some interaction there. A lot of times they sit down in front of the group, and it's not like they're standing up teaching. They're sitting down talking to the group, so it's a very comfortable atmosphere. Then also something that puts the volunteers at ease sometimes is that at each hearing and at each meeting with CYFD, things like that, the CASA volunteer supervisor is there with the volunteer to assist them and help them to understand what's going on. And at different educational meetings, the advocate coach is present at those meetings. Then when it comes to writing the court report, we're there for that person. We don't just tell them, write this report for the judge, but we help them through that.
Right. And that is what the CASA volunteer really is doing, is writing these reports from their observations and helping the judge, I suppose, who has to make that final decision, right?
Yes, they gather up the information when they make visits with the children, when they make visits to observe the parental interaction with the child, when they visit the school. They're gathering all this information, and then they put it into the report to the judge so that the judge gets a picture of where the child is, how the child's doing, how the placement of the child is going, whether reunification is feasible at the time or not.
Right. My guest this morning from the San Juan County CASA program, that's Court-Appointed Special Advocate, is part of the Child Haven umbrella of programs here in San Juan County. And Amy O'Neill, I want to turn back to you a little bit about the judges, because I know there's maybe been some changes in judges in recent years, and yet what hasn't changed is their reliance on these CASA reports when they're dealing with these child welfare cases. And the judges all seem to be on the CASA bandwagon, that they really appreciate the work of the CASA volunteer. That hasn't changed.
That has not changed. We're very fortunate to have the good support of the district court judges that take the abuse and neglect cases. So we're quite proud that now Judge Townsend, Karen Townsend, is the chief judge. So she is one of the team that started the CASA program back in 1996. And right now, Judge Brad Daly has most of the abuse and neglect cases, and he was a guardian ad litem attorney himself, which is the attorney that represents the child. So he has a lot of experience, and when he was a GAL, he was very accessible to the CASA volunteers, and now he's very good about asking the CASA volunteer each time, do you agree with what was said today? Do you have anything else to add to your report? And he's been very good at reading the reports closely and asking questions. I'd like to give our phone number, maybe.
Yes, of course.
So you can always go to the Child Haven website, which is childhavennm.org, to find out all the different things about Child Haven, and it's been updated recently. And then you will see a tab to go to volunteers for the CASA program. Our phone number to come to the CASA office is 505-325-5358, extension 6. So that is the Child Haven number, and extension 6 will bring you to the CASA staff.
Very good. And again, you can always go to the website and check those things out as well, and get more information about the CASA program there too.
Yes.
Which is what we're talking about this morning. Great. And so what else should folks know about being a CASA volunteer? Again, if folks are a little intimidated by courtrooms or by lawyers, again, I know there's always, Kevin Gorman, some advice or some other volunteers that are available maybe to answer questions, like people like you, that if folks come up to a situation in the court that they haven't seen before, they can always reach out to you or someone else for help.
So, of course, we're always available. I mean, via email, they can call our cell phones, they can call our office. If they leave a voicemail, it's always directed toward our cell phones, even if we're out somewhere. So we're always available. We're always a support. If somebody feels like they're getting a little burnt out, we always tell them, come talk with us. Let us give you some ideas. We get to a wall sometimes where even visiting can be tough in scheduling. And so we come up with some creative ideas for them so that they can get their visit in, because they do have to visit a child in their settings at least once a month. And so and sometimes people get really busy, and once a month becomes like this thing that's like very overbearing. But we try to team. If we have to support them in a visit, we do. We work around our schedule. We do what we can to make them successful as well, because at the end, we're all there for the children.
That's the key, really, isn't it? Yes, that's true. And Becky Adams, I know you feel the same way, and the support is there, too, for these volunteers, right?
Yes. Sometimes, like I say, the court report can be very intimidating because there's a certain format it needs to fit into, and so a lot of people get a little intimidated about that. But I know I love to write, so that's one of the things that I always kind of enjoy, is sitting down with the volunteer and saying, okay, what information have you gathered? This goes in here in this section. And then because of that, what is the assessment? And we draw that out, and then because of that, what are your recommendations to the judge? And they actually kind of feel an accomplishment that they do get to actually recommend something to the judge in this child's behalf. And then especially where the judge does many times ask or mention, okay, I've gone over your recommendations and they sound like they're in line with what's being said here. Do you agree with that, CASA? And so they feel an accomplishment in that.
They really do serve an important role in this process, the CASA volunteer, of getting this kind of third-party opinion in front of a judge, right, to be able to make his or her final decision.
Yes, because they're one of the few people in the case that can talk to almost anybody in the case. They can talk to the parents, they can talk to the teacher, they can talk to the foster, they can talk to the guardian ad litem, the attorney for the youth. They can interview and talk with almost everybody in the case, and so they have a unique position.
Exactly. Amy O'Neill, I know that you and I have talked before about the CASA volunteers and how long they serve, and many CASA volunteers, once a case is over, sign back up again for another case. You've had many volunteers that have served for multiple years, correct, and represented multiple cases.
We do. And so I can say a shout out to Judy Schlotterbeck is coming in to look at another case, and Judy has probably done at least 6 or 7 cases, and we try to give her some time off from time to time. Rita Blazaitis is going to come back and help us with a case. She's had 3 or 4 cases. Becky Schroeder came back and took another case. She's been going for 7 years. So we're very, very lucky to have these committed people that training and that experience that they've gained in completing cases and seeing outcomes, whether they completely agreed with the outcome or not, they can see successful changes in the children, and that's what's important.
Indeed, very true. And for all of you, I want to ask the question about the work that these volunteers do. It's got to be very fulfilling, as Amy is mentioning. Even maybe if the judge doesn't always agree with the C.A.S.A recommendation, you've got to feel, if you're a volunteer, that you've done your part for this child, on behalf of this child, as they go through this system and try to get them into their very best placement of whatever that may be. Is that what you all find? Becky, let me start with you.
Yes, and sometimes it is hard when the ending of the case is not quite what you expected. But that's where many times as the supervisor we have to take and look at the case and say, wait a minute, remember when such and such happened? And you were able to advocate for the child in this way, and remember this outcome was beneficial, and they're in a better position than they were. So we have to try to help the C.A.S.A to look at that, because we are looking for a safe and permanent home for this child. It may not always be what we expected, but that is the outcome that we're looking for, and we can try to look at that.
Very true. Keba Gorman, same question to you, again, about the outcomes and the volunteers, again, feeling some feeling of accomplishment because of all that they've been able to do for this child.
Right. Yeah, we definitely see some frustrations at certain times, but, it's great to see them have some support. I think a lot of the times, especially we hear that from our older children, is just having somebody to speak to and to talk to and to just be able to relate in some way. Just to do that much for them, even if they are not getting everything that they want, I think it's still nice to be part of that in some way. So I enjoyed it. I mean, I advocated for a teen girl at one point, and it was great to give her a voice, but also to try to let her find her own voice as well. So that was actually really nice to see.
I imagine that's nice to see over
Right.
the course of several months, probably.
Yes.
Of how that worked. So good to hear. Thank you. And Amy O'Neill, I want to put out a plug too for college students. Here at San Juan College, or maybe students that are going to Highlands or things like that, you sometimes have some internship opportunities, or folks maybe want to get into this line of social work or things like that, and they meet the criteria, they could serve as a C.A.S.A volunteer?
Yes, and students are welcome to attend our training for service learning. So Keba will be at Rush, and we will have some flyers up around on the TVs and on the bulletin boards, and just give us a call, and we like to meet with the student first so that we can fill out their paperwork for their teacher. We understand what's involved. Most of the training, of course, would be learning, and if they want to add some service within Child Haven, we can figure that out with them. But as Becky mentioned, those experts in the field of child welfare that are presenting at the training are really helpful. We have people that come away and they say, I learned so much today, and they really do enjoy going to the training as their service learning opportunities.
Right, and that's 40 hours of service learning opportunities, right, for the whole training.
So that'd be 30 hours,
Pardon me,
right,
30.
right. And then we have had interns from Humanities of San Juan College, and we have had interns from New Mexico Highlands University. So we are very open to that. Also the other programs at Child Haven. And what we do is interesting in the fact that you are meeting with clients, you're meeting with parents as well as children. And of course, the most fun part of the job is visiting the children. That is the most fun part of the job. But you're in meetings where there's attorneys, social workers, service providers such as counselors for mental health, domestic violence, substance abuse. So you are seeing a lot of things in reality that you don't get to see in your classes. And so I feel it's a very valuable internship when they're able to be with us.
Yeah, I would think so, which is a great opportunity. And again, probably looks pretty good on a resume too, or a job application as you think about life beyond your college years.
Yes, very much so. And you kind of are able to see a lot of people working in different functions, and then you can think to yourself, would I really like to do that next? Or maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable in that role, and it helps them make decisions for their future.
Right. And Kevin Gorman, as Amy mentioned, you'll be at our student rush here on campus of San Juan College to kind of explain to students the opportunities to work with community groups like C.A.S.A.
Yes, I do get the pleasure. I think it's one of the funner recruitment things that we do. So if anybody is interested in learning more, or even just wanting to stop by to say hi or to tell us a story that you may have had in your lifetime too, we just would like to see you, and it would be fun just to try to connect in some way. You know, sometimes people don't have the time to be a volunteer right now, but to get the information to even share it with somebody else who might be available, that's another opportunity for us to reach out to find another volunteer.
Very true. And again, the phone number, if folks would like more information, Amy O'Neill, I know you enjoy reciting the phone number with me. Thank you.
So the phone number is the Child Haven phone number, 505-325-5358, and the C.A.S.A program is extension 6. So just press 6 and you'll come to one of the C.A.S.A staff, or you can go to our website at childhavennm.org.
Okay. And I know to find the C.A.S.A program, it's childhavennm.org/C.A.S.A.
Yes.
And you can find it right there. So there you go. Well, we are out of time, everybody, but thank you so much for coming in to talk about, I know it's a passion for all of you, is helping these children, and appreciate all the work that you do as C.A.S.A volunteers. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us,
Thank you.
Scott.
You're very welcome. Thank you all very much. My guests, Becky Adams, Kevin Gorman, and Amy O'Neill from the C.A.S.A program, part of Child Haven here on KSJE. I'll be back with more in just a moment, everybody.